The White House's attempt to shield President Joe Biden's mental condition from public scrutiny has been a defining and controversial aspect of his presidency, according to a bombshell investigation that has cast new light on the inner workings of his administration. Reports reveal an elaborate and meticulously executed strategy aimed at downplaying and obscuring signs of the president's cognitive decline. These revelations have led to questions not only about Biden's capacity to govern but also about the ethical boundaries crossed in the process. Throughout Biden's presidency, his team undertook extraordinary measures to manage his public appearances, decision-making processes, and interactions with both the media and members of his own administration. Behind the scenes, efforts ranged from hiring a vocal coach to maintain the strength and clarity of his speech to delegating roles typically reserved for the president to other senior officials. According to sources, these actions were designed to compensate for what insiders describe as the president's good days and bad days, a euphemism for fluctuating cognitive abilities. The meetings deemed critical to national security were sometimes scrapped altogether on days when Biden's condition was particularly concerning, leaving aides to navigate the aftermath and offer vague explanations to stakeholders. An explosive investigation by the Wall Street Journal has exposed a years-long calculated cover-up by the administration, aimed at gaslighting critics who dared to suggest that Biden's mental sharpness had significantly deteriorated since his tenure as vice president under Barack Obama. This cover-up reached its apex when special counsel Robert Hur's investigation into Biden's mishandling of classified documents painted an unflattering picture of the president. At the age of 81, Biden was described in the report as forgetful and frail, with Hur opting not to pursue charges, partly due to concerns that Biden's poor memory and apparent vulnerability might evoke sympathy from a jury. The implication was clear. Biden's cognitive decline was no longer a matter of speculation but a factor influencing legal decisions. The extent of Biden's decline became increasingly evident during critical moments of his presidency. Staffers who prepared him for interviews or public appearances faced immense challenges, as Biden often struggled to repeat back even carefully prepared lines. This inability to retain and deliver scripted material raised alarms among close aides, who worked tirelessly to minimize the potential fallout from such lapses. The report from the Wall Street Journal revealed that these struggles were not isolated incidents but part of a broader pattern of behavior that included frequent cancellations of high-level meetings. National security briefings were among the casualties, with aides attributing the cancellations to the president's bad days and offering assurances that other officials were handling the matters at hand. This explanation, however, did little to assuage concerns within the administration or among members of Congress. One of the most damning accounts of the administration's efforts to shield Biden came from Democratic Congressman Adam Smith. As chair of the House Armed Services Committee in 2021, Smith tried repeatedly to convey his grave concerns about the planned withdrawal from Afghanistan to the president. Despite the urgency of the matter, Smith's attempts to secure a meeting with Biden were rebuffed. When the withdrawal culminated in the tragic deaths of 13 U.S. service members and 170 Afghan civilians, Smith publicly criticized the administration's handling of the situation, only to face reprimands from Secretary of State Antony Blinken. It was only after this public fallout that Biden reached out to Smith, offering a rare apology. However, Smith later revealed that this was the only personal call he had ever received from the president during his 4-year term, a stark contrast to the level of engagement expected between a president and key congressional leaders. The insularity of Biden's inner circle further fueled concerns about who was truly running the country. A well-connected Democratic strategist described the concentration of power among a select group of advisors as both unprecedented and deeply troubling. Known as the Biden Whisperers, Bruce Reed, Steve Ricchetti, and Mike Donilon wielded immense influence over the president, often acting as gatekeepers and decision-makers on his behalf. This trio's outsized role created friction within the administration, with lower-level staff expressing frustration over the lack of transparency and access to the president. As Biden's term progressed, it became increasingly difficult for even seasoned political insiders to determine who was making key decisions in the White House. The administration's efforts to manage Biden's image extended beyond the confines of the West Wing. Concerns about his cognitive abilities predated his presidency and were evident during his 2020 campaign. Advisors sought to downplay the disparity in energy levels between Biden and his wife, Jill Biden, whose packed schedule often highlighted her husband's slower pace. Even before Biden's first day in office, there were internal discussions about how to minimize comparisons between the couple. Jill Biden's vigorous campaign schedule was viewed as a liability rather than an asset, as it drew attention to the president's plodding demeanor. By late June of this year, these concerns had come to fruition during a high-stakes debate with Donald Trump. The event, marked by gaffes, fumbles, and blank stares from Biden, proved disastrous for his re-election campaign. The president's performance during the hour-and-a-half televised debate was widely criticized and ultimately led to a groundswell of calls from within his own party for him to step aside. The fallout from the debate was swift and decisive. Senior Democrats, once hesitant to acknowledge Biden's decline publicly, began to voice their concerns more openly. Pressure mounted for Biden to abandon his bid for re-election, culminating in his decision to endorse Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee. However, Harris's candidacy proved unable to galvanize voters, and she ultimately lost to Trump in the November 5th election. The political implications of Biden's cognitive decline extended far beyond his own presidency, casting a long shadow over the Democratic Party's prospects for the future. Behind the scenes, the measures taken to manage Biden's public image became increasingly elaborate. The administration enlisted Hollywood studio mogul Jeffrey Katzenberg to secure a voice coach for the president, hoping to improve his faltering speech. On days when his voice failed him, aides found creative ways to limit his public appearances and phone calls. Simplistic instruction cards with detailed pointers on where to walk, sit, and look became a staple of his events, underscoring the extent to which his team sought to micromanage his every move. These efforts, while intended to project an image of competence and control, often had the opposite effect, drawing attention to the lengths the administration was willing to go to maintain the facade. As Biden's term drew to a close, the question of who truly held power in his administration remained a point of contention. Critics argued that the concentration of influence among a small group of advisors undermined the democratic principles of transparency and accountability. Supporters, however, maintained that these measures were necessary to ensure stability and continuity in governance. The revelations about the White House's handling of Biden's mental condition have left an indelible mark on his legacy, raising profound questions about the intersection of age, leadership, and the responsibilities of public office. The broader implications of these revelations extend beyond the Biden presidency, prompting a national conversation about the role of cognitive health in political leadership. As the oldest president in U.S. history, Biden's tenure has highlighted the challenges and complexities of governing at an advanced age. The efforts to manage and conceal his condition have exposed deep divisions within the Democratic Party and underscored the importance of transparency in a functioning democracy. For many, the lessons of the Biden administration will serve as a cautionary tale, emphasizing the need for honesty and accountability in the highest echelons of power.